Welcome to Saju Matthew Online Safety University.
As I told you, risk assessment is the systematic process of identifying hazards, evaluating risk, applying control measures against direct risk and residual risk. So, we know what is residual risk. Residual risk is the risk remaining after applying certain control measures. Even after applying control measure, some amount of risk will be left to it. That risk is known as residual risk. In order to meet the residual risk, in order to address the residual risk, we should have adequate arrangement in place. That arrangements are known as recovery measure. Examples of recovery measures are first aid arrangement, having a medical officer or doctor at workplace, having an ambulance at workplace, having emergency procedure. These all are recovery measures. Your risk control measures will be completed only when you have adequate direct risk control measures and the recovery measures against residual risk. Is it clear to you? Okay. Risk assessment is a systematic process of identifying hazards, evaluating risk, applying control measures and recovery measures against direct risk and residual risk. If you can't remember this much, very simple definition, risk assessment is a systematic process of deciding what can go wrong at workplace. Clear? Very good.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So our next question is, what do you mean by suitable and sufficient risk assessment?
Oh yes, it is as per ILO Convention 155. ILO recommendation 164. Every employer should have suitable and sufficient risk assessment against each and every activities at workplace. Whatever activities you are having, so it is a responsibility of the employer to have suitable and sufficient risk assessment against each activities at workplace. Now the question is, what do you mean by suitable and sufficient risk assessment? A risk assessment will become suitable and sufficient when it is complying with the legal requirement. In order to become suitable and sufficient, the risk assessment should comply with the legal requirement. Clear? It should identify all hazards and risk involved in it. Then only risk assessment will have it can be called as suitable and sufficient. It should identify all types of hazards. Clear? Then only it will become suitable and sufficient. The third one, it should be for a longer period actually, not for a shorter duration. In order to make a risk assessment suitable and sufficient, it should cover for sufficient period of time. It is not for the momentary actually. Minimum for maximum duration it should be able to cover, it should be able to identify the risk factors involved in that. So the risk and control measures which are suggesting should have longevity. So it should be for a particular duration. Minimum, it should give maximum duration or applicability. That becomes suitable and sufficient risk assessment.